Welcome everybody to today's webinar. So here are some hard to believe health myths from the past. People actually use these things to cure illnesses, live longer, and look better, lose weight, all those good things. So in the past, people actually ate shark cartilage in order to treat cancer. Nowadays, we know that's actually not true, and there's a lot of other things that we do to treat cancer, but that was the practice that people used to use, or a myth that people believed in. Another thing that people did was eat snake oil as an anti-inflammatory. Again, that's pretty gross. If you think about it today, nobody's actually using snake oil in their smoothie in the morning or, putting it on their sandwich, but it was used in the past as an anti-inflammatory. And then the one that's the most hard for me to believe is that people actually use tapeworms for weight loss. So people would eat or ingest tapeworms in order for those tapeworms to then eat their food, and then they would lose weight. So that to me is actually a really hard to believe myth from the past, but these were all things that people were using because at one time or another, they actually believed the validity of them, and there was no research to disprove them. Well, thankfully, these myths have since been debunked by science and research, and there are scientists that have said, okay, these things don't actually work, and research that has proven that they don't work. Today we have so many new health ideas that it's hard to know what's actually fact and myth. Sometimes an idea gets passed around and then it becomes a fad. So you've heard of gluten-free diets, the low-carb diet, paleo diet, even this waist trainer that you see in this picture. But there's not a lot of research going behind these ideas saying that these are actually true. They may work for some individuals. I'm not saying that they don't work for anybody, but there isn't a lot of research that says, okay, these things are for sure the way to go. You should totally do this diet or use this waist trainer because this is for everybody. Other times you have medical professionals that tell you something, and then later on we find out that those things aren't actually true. So medical professionals at one time or another were actually using shark cartilage to be able to help with cancer, and then later on they found out it didn't actually work. Today we're going to talk about 10 common food myths and why they're not true. So the first claim is that small regular meals will boost your metabolism. So some of you already may have heard this and are actually doing this, and you have, 6 small regular meals as opposed to 3 larger meals. There's nothing wrong with doing that. It's not going to make you gain weight necessarily unless your meals are large 6 meals. But what happens instead of it boosting metabolism is it actually curbs your appetite so that the next time you go to eat, you're not overeating at that meal. So again, it doesn't improve your metabolism or speed it up so that you're burning more calories, but what it does do is it helps to curb your appetite so that, let's say if you decided to skip lunch and then you go to dinner, you're actually going to eat more at dinner because you're so hungry. So eating those 6 small meals will just satiate you throughout the day, and not to mention it will be really helpful with people who have diabetes to stabilize your blood glucose. So that's why it's really good to eat 6 small meals, but not necessarily to boost your metabolism. All right, the next claim is that eggs will spike your cholesterol. So a lot of people in the past have said, I've given up eggs, so my cholesterol should go down. That's not necessarily true. Eggs actually do have a lot of beneficial nutrients in them. They have vitamin B12, which is really, important for our health and helps with heart disease. But they also help to boost our HDL, which is our good cholesterol. So yes, this statement is true, but in a good way. So you do want higher HDL levels as opposed to higher LDL levels, which are your bad cholesterol. So what happens when you boost your good cholesterol, which is HDL, is that good cholesterol then helps to remove the bad cholesterol. So that's why it's important that you know that it's actually increasing your good cholesterol as opposed to your bad cholesterol. So if you want to have an omelet in the morning, you want to have some scrambled eggs, make an egg sandwich, by all means do that. Just with anything, like with anything else, you just don't want to go overboard with it. All right, the third claim is that coffee is bad for you. So this is definitely not true. There's a lot of research that has gone into the study of coffee. Again, I have heard a lot of patients say, I'm giving up coffee and drinking tea instead. That's totally fine if you want to do that. Let's say you have problems with anxiety or sleep disturbances, or coffee just makes you jittery in general, even angry, then yeah, you can definitely switch to a non-caffeinated drink or even do half and half. But coffee does have a lot lot of antioxidants in it, and antioxidants are really good for your health. They actually help to prevent diseases. They can lower, it can help lower risk of depression, as well as type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. So that's all good things. Antioxidants are also high in fruits and vegetables, and so they're in coffee as well, so that's a very good thing. So the only thing to remember with coffee is that you don't want to go to Starbucks and, put 7 sugars in there and a bunch of creamer, because then it's really taking away from the benefit of coffee, and now you're just drinking a lot more fat and sugar. So if you want to have a small cup in the morning with those eggs that we just talked about, by all means have that small black coffee, and if you want to add a little bit of creamer, then that's perfectly fine as well. All right, the next claim is that low-fat foods are better for you. So again, over time, we've been hearing a lot about you should choose low-fat options as opposed to high-fat dairy products, but that's not necessarily true either. So with high-fat dairy products, yes, you run the risk of eating more saturated fat because it's not been manufactured to be low-fat. But what happens with low-fat dairy products is that you'll end up having more added sugar in your diet, because manufacturers will add sugar to the low-fat dairy products in order to make them taste better. So again, it's not necessarily better to eat more low-fat dairy products because it could increase your added sugar intake during the day. So if you want, you can eat high-fat dairy products, but in moderation. Just make sure that if you're eating butter instead of margarine, that you only have a small amount of it. All right, the next claim is that dairy is the best thing for healthy bones or for your to increase calcium. So again, this is not necessarily true. Yes, dairy has calcium in it, but it's not the best thing out there for you. Instead of drinking so much milk to get your calcium, it would actually be better to eat dark green leafy vegetables. So if you want to increase your collard greens or your mustard greens, kale, bok choy, spinach, broccoli, all of those things have calcium in them, and they also have vitamin K, which helps with the absorption of calcium. So you have 2 things, to help you out in that food specifically, in those foods specifically. So if you want to have a stir fry with some bok choy, or maybe you want to do a stew with some bok choy, you could also do some kale chips. Just throw those in the oven, drizzle some olive oil on them with some salt and pepper. Then that makes for a great snack, and you're going to be increasing your calcium and vitamin K intake for the day. Okay, so our next claim is that high sodium foods always taste salty. So this is not true at all. As I've already discussed with low-fat dairy products, added sugar has been, put in there to make it taste better. Well, the same thing goes for other foods. A lot of times when you're eating packaged foods and more processed foods, they not only have added sugar, but they also have added salt. As you can see here, I put Oreos and waffles. These both have a moderately high sodium count, so you want to take that into account. Just because you're eating an Oreo and it tastes sweet doesn't mean that it doesn't have salt in it. If you look at this Dunkin' Donuts muffin, this muffin actually contains as much sodium as 9 McDonald's Chicken McNuggets. So that's pretty high, and you wouldn't necessarily know that because of the flavor and it's sweet. So you wouldn't think to yourself, oh, this has high sodium in it. So the bottom line is that you definitely want to check your nutrition labels. When you go out, ask for the nutrition pamphlet. Maybe look for it online ahead of time before you go out to eat. You just don't know what hidden sodium content there is. Okay, our next claim is don't eat after 6, 7, or 8. So again, I have a lot of patients tell me I'm going to stop eating at 4:30 or 5. For some people, this is not very practical. Some people work night shifts or they have varied shift schedules, so they have to eat at night. So again, it's important to know that your metabolism doesn't completely stop at night. When you go to bed, when you're sitting down on the couch, your metabolism is still going. It's just not at a high rate like as if you were exercising. So what is important to remember is that you might go above your daily caloric intake if you're eating late at night. So let's say you've already had your 6 small meals or your 3 medium-sized meals, and then you go to eat a late night snack. This could actually put you above your daily limit. So if you're tracking what you're eating throughout the day, maybe you're using MyFitnessPal and you're checking to see what your daily limit is and that you haven't gone above it, if you want to have a a healthy snack in the evening of some fruit or a small fruit, or you want to have some vegetables, and that's perfectly fine. It's when you start to eat those late night heavy snacks like chips or popcorn, and you're eating more of it than you actually should, and that can cause weight gain over time. All right, the next claim is that microwaving foods kills nutritional content. So this again is not true. Some of you may be upset that I'm saying this right now because you don't have a microwave at home and you choose to cook other ways, but the microwave actually doesn't come in contact with certain nutrients, or the waves of the microwave don't come in contact with certain nutrients in the food. They actually only target certain water molecules because they're so short. So they're not penetrating deeply enough to be able to zap, as some people would say, the nutrients of that food. So if you want to use a microwave to cook, that's totally fine. And it sometimes can actually be more beneficial than cooking with water, because sometimes we boil our vegetables and what happens is that water will turn green, and that's how you know the nutrients have been leached out of the vegetables. So using a microwave is perfectly fine. If you want to do your own research on this because you don't believe me, I would totally recommend that so that you can see that it's okay to use a microwave. All right, the next claim is that frozen foods are not as nutritious as fresh foods. So you can definitely buy frozen vegetables, and I would encourage that as well because they're a little bit easier to cook in the microwave or even to throw in a saute on the stove. But what happens is that frozen fruits and vegetables are actually frozen at the point of harvest when they have the most nutrients. So those nutrients are being preserved when they're frozen. So again, if you want to use them in a stir fry or you want to have them for dinner tonight, then definitely pick up some frozen fruits and vegetables. All right, and our last claim is that gluten-free or organic food is healthier for you. So for some individuals, you have a gluten intolerance or you like to eat organic, and that's perfectly fine. But if you're actually only eating gluten-free because it's a fad or you've heard it's healthier for you, that's not always necessarily true. So if you have a gluten-free cake, cake is still cake. It's still going to have sugar in it. It's still going to have other ingredients that, butter, flour, things. No, I'm sorry, it doesn't have flour because it's gluten-free, but it's going to have other things that aren't necessarily as good for you. So you just want to make sure that if you are going gluten-free because you think it's going to make you lose weight, that you make sure you choose foods that are healthy that are gluten-free. So keep that in mind, as well as with organic. If you see something that has a label that says organic on it, definitely still look at the nutrition label to make sure it doesn't have a lot of added sodium or sugar to make it taste better. All right, in conclusion, as you can see, there's always these food fads that are coming out, a lot of food myths that we've believed over time and we've never really challenged because we didn't know they were false. So make sure that you do your research. Look online, look for research articles that have people that they studied, a large population of 1,000 or more, rather than just one person's opinion that you found online, or maybe your grandmother told you it was something that was good for you. Challenge those ideas and make sure that you're asking yourself, is this true or not? And if you really don't know, maybe ask a physician that you really trust, a healthcare professional, or a dietitian that can help you navigate those things that you're seeing online or reading in a book. If you enjoyed today's talk, I would definitely encourage